Right, so I'm the last speaker of today. I'm Agni, and
Of this block,
of this
before the
blog.
break.
Oh, sorry for assuming so much importance of myself.
6 minutes left.
Yeah, vanity. I currently work at the University of Utrecht, but I did this research at the Free University of Amsterdam together with other colleagues. So I'm going to talk about some voluntary practices and why they work and under what conditions. So governments are not the only actors who try to address the challenge of marine litter. And in fact, we see the proliferation of a number of voluntary initiatives across all EU regional seas. And in this slide, you can see a number of examples. So a typical example is the beach cleaning activities that usually takes place before the tourists arrive. But we also find initiatives such as the fishing for litter, which includes cleaning up, but also awareness raising. Basically, fishing boats are provided with big bags, and then they collect the litter that they find at the marine environment. We have some initiatives that try to challenge our behavior, like, for instance, the repair cafes. I'm not sure if you have heard about them, but these are places that are run by local communities, and there you can go and repair your stuff instead of throwing them away. Basically, this is not something new. It's what our grandparents used to do, but it's perhaps new for us in the 21st century. And we also find some more institutionalized forms of cooperation, typically between central governments and businesses and or NGOs. Like in the Netherlands, we have the Green Deals, which is an agreement between the central Dutch government and a number of sectors, like the fishing sector or even the shipping sector, and they set certain targets and they try to achieve them together. Or we have the Courtauld Commitment, which is an initiative by retail chains in the UK under the framework of the UK government in order to reduce waste in their whole supply chains. So we have a number of these initiatives, and we can find them in all the EU regional seas. But as you can see from this graph, in some areas they are more prevalent than in others, or at least we were able to identify more in some areas than in others. And the area with the most of these initiatives is the Northeast Atlantic. And we shouldn't be surprised really by that, because this is an area where it has this tradition of voluntarism and entrepreneurship. In terms of what exactly they target, we see that they target the different stages of the waste hierarchy, but we find a lot in the awareness raising and beach cleaning, which are the more traditional ways of addressing this problem. But it's encouraging that we find also in the prevention and other stages that's important. And in terms of who is behind them, here we also find different types of factors. Here you see slightly different numbers, and that is because some initiatives are present in many different countries, like the Fishing for Litter, which we counted as one initiative when we try to identify who is behind them. So we see that civil society, and foundations like the Plastic Soup Foundation or the North Sea Foundation are behind many of those. But businesses are also behind many of those, like Marks & Spencer and supermarket chains. We find public actors initiating voluntary initiatives, and these are usually municipalities, so at the lower level of administration. And we also find hybrid nature initiatives. So these include cooperations between different types of actors. So we have all these initiatives in all these different areas, and the question is, why do they emerge in the first place? So there are different explanations for why they have emerged. One form of explanation is that governments are slow and ineffective. And so these type of initiatives fill in a kind of regulatory gap that is left by the governments. Then we have a second but similar type of explanation. This emphasizes the innovative nature of this type of initiatives. They are bottom-up, they are energetic, they are entrepreneurial, and so on. And they can address problems better than governments. And then you have a third set of explanation, which is a more critical. And from this perspective, scholars argue that basically it's a question of power. So if you have businesses regulating themselves, they gain power vis-a-vis the state. So our goal was not to find out who is right in this debate. And of course, if you are a neoliberal or if you are a Marxist, you're going to be convinced by different arguments. And as those of us in the room who are social scientists know very well, you can always find data that support one position or the other. But having said that, what we found in our project is that indeed governments may have not been as effective as we would have wanted them to be in addressing this problem, but we also did not find evidence to convince us that voluntary initiatives in their entirety constitute a panacea, that they are going to solve the problem magically and automatically. So this observation led us to ask ourselves, so under what conditions do voluntary initiatives live up to their promise? And we call them the ingredients of success. And we identified 5 of these conditions or 5 of these ingredients. And please look at them together. So there is no hierarchy of which one is more important than the other. So one condition is ambition. So we need to have ambitious voluntary initiatives. And this may seem like a very trivial observation. However, it's not trivial if you consider that the majority of these initiatives do not try to go beyond what governments are already trying to do, which is our definition of ambition. These initiatives may help governments to implement certain goals, but we also need them in order to push the frontier. And this is why they should be there in the first place. However, also in evaluating ambition, we should not forget that this is a relative concept. So what is ambitious in Bulgaria may not be considered ambitious in the Netherlands. Or what is considered ambitious in the Netherlands may be over-ambitious in Bulgaria and therefore not be able to be implemented. Second condition is that we need monitoring, compliance, and accountability mechanisms for these initiatives. And that's a bit counter to their voluntary nature. And there is the assumption that peer pressure and reputation costs will do the goods. But these mechanisms work only when there is homogeneity among the actors, when there is proximity, and where there is visibility to the consumers. And so in the absence of these conditions, we need more formalized forms of overseeing and control. They need to attract a critical stakeholder mass. And of course, that's because they are voluntary. So nobody is obliged to participate. So the question is, what motivates actors to participate? And if you look at the traditional economic theories and even much of the political science research, the assumption is that actors are rational utility maximizers. So they calculate costs and benefits in a monetary way, and if the benefits outweigh the cost, they will participate. Now, what we found out in this research, and actually verifies research of others, is that we are much more complex than that. So we have things such as values, ethics, norms, etc. And these matter in the reasons why stakeholders participate. And we need to then research this complexity further. Fourth, and counterintuitively again, we found that voluntary initiatives work best when they are supported by governments. And this contradicts the neoliberal era that we now live in, that supposes that the state has no reason of existence, or we need only a minimal state, and therefore we need to dismantle it. In fact, we found that the best of these initiatives would not have been as best without support by governments. And finally, we need a level playing field. So in scaling up initiatives, we need, of course, more than a few good examples. We need to scale up, but we need to do that in a way that creates conditions across all regions and even within the regions of equal opportunities. Because otherwise, we end up with waste havens in regions that have less stringent environmental regulation, more economic problems, and in general, less opportunities. So these are our 5 ingredients of success.
In 30 seconds.
Our message is that marine litter is a political problem. It needs cooperation between different types of actors, and it requires from us to imagine and reinstitutionalize new norms. And so in order to do that, we need to bring back into the political discussion the role of ethics, the role of values, and even of emotions. Because marine litter is only a problem if we consider it a problem, if we feel disgusted by it, if we value beauty, and if we want to create pressure for change. And that's my last slide, final message.
They're almost going to attack you after 2 hours of sitting down, so
no.
make it short.
It's really, really very short, and it recaps, I hope, the whole presentation of this afternoon. What we need for an ecological future, I'm just going to read then this. For an ecological future, we need to create a different hierarchy of values, and we need to think about the economic and political system that can really support that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.